Well, good morning, lovely ladies and gentlemen. Steve Collins coming to you from beautiful, cloudy San Antonio, Texas. The second most powerful, passionate, and purposeful coach and speaker in the world. I hope you guys are just as thrilled as I am to have another wonderful opportunity to Groundhog Day this mug we call today. Another chance to do it right and do it better. Today I would like to traverse a subject people tread lightly on because there are so many variables connected to the reality that someone is based on one's history of what they have, who redefine their level on a scale of 1 to 10 of what suffering is. Everybody does suffer, and it is subjective to that individual and to their personal experience to that date. So the most important part of this suffering conversation I want to begin with is that it is not yours to judge ever. Judge not lest you be stupid, because you do not know the history of one person from another. You see some people, a president gets elected that they don't like, and they literally fall to pieces and have to take a class. I can't go to class, oh my. And you see other people like Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, who is subject to the horrors of the Holocaust, who ended up coming out writing a book talking about the realities of the conversations we have with ourselves and the control that we have in any environment to determine what it is that we're going to think about and what we're going to focus on. So everybody has their own subjective reality of what they consider suffering. So step number one, you can't judge anybody who's suffering. How, though, do you suffer with joy? Well, let's talk about the definition so that we can traverse intelligently down this path. Suffering, experiencing something negative or unpleasant or bad, the definition says in Webster's. Joy is a product of an internal standing. Now, I spoke last week on the difference between your state and your standing. People in state awareness tend to be like thermometers, meaning that their moods, their attitudes, their thinking, the way they show up in life, their relationships are dictated largely by external circumstances. This is the person that could be having a fantastic morning with their family, a wonderful day, everything is going great. Then they get run off the road on the way to work, and it ruins their entire day as they rehearse that offense all day long. Thermometer. This is someone who has acquiesced their power to maintain the way that they're going to show up in life to an external circumstance. Thermometer. By the way, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that girl. That is a person who is controlled by or influenced by their state. The state comes and goes based on what's going on around you. State is temporal. Your standing is very different. Your standing is who you are regardless of what's going on. Let's take, for instance, Joe Theismann, the former quarterback of the Washington Redskins, who has 4 Super Bowl rings. Joe Theismann, okay? He can have a game where he throws an interception. He can have a game where he blows the whole game and they lose everything. He can have a game where he gets sacked and whacked and hurt. He's still Joe Theismann. His standing is still Hall of Famer. His standing is still 4-time Super Bowl winner because he is Joe Theismann. His standing doesn't change because his state does. You see, happiness comes from happenstance, and it is based on the state you are in and the influence that your external circumstances have around you. Your joy is an inside job. Your joy is an inside job that is based on who you are. Now, I always have 2 sections to this conversation. One for believers, those who say there is a God, I believe in him, and I believe he had a son named Jesus who came and did some amazing stuff and was the only religious leader of all time to say, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by me. You want to get to him, you got to go through me. Sorry, he's the only one that said it, proved it, backed it up, died, rose 3 days later. You believe that or you don't. Okay? So it's two different conversations if you don't believe that. If you don't believe that, cool. You might as well stop listening because it's not going to make sense to you. If you are a believer, you have a standing, meaning that you have been made right with God through the sacrifice on the cross, through Jesus, and you have a standing with the good Lord that is no longer based on behavior. Now, there are blessings that are conditional based on your obedience, and there is a call to a higher level of living, and there is a call to a higher standard of living, and there is a call to a higher expectation of living, because you are now a child of the Most High. You're royalty, you're a prince, you're a princess, there's more expected of you. Yeah, yet your standing with Him can feel very secure. And when you know you are loved, you are cared for, and you are adored, regardless of how you are showing up, you are loved. Nothing can separate you from the love of God. Not height, not depth, not breadth, not width, not angels, not demons. Nothing can separate you. That's what it says in the Bible. When you understand this, you have a standing that allows you in the midst of suffering circumstances to have an internal joy that is an anchor to your soul, allowing you maybe not to feel like celebrating, maybe not to feel like your best, but you have a standing of joy. Joy is defined as calm delight. Joy is not, oh my God, everything's wonderful. No, joy is a calm delight. Get that? Calm delight. It is the knowing that everything's gonna be aight. That's my hood way of saying it. Can I do that? Can I be hood with y'all? Everything's gonna be aight. Everything is gonna be aight. You know, because you know that your standing is right, and you know that all things are working together for your good, and you know that there are things being orchestrated behind the scenes of your life, positioning you for your next blessing, for your next opportunity. For He knows the plans that He has for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. These are amazing and wonderful promises that when you rest on these assurances, in your soul, in your mind, and in your spirit, you can have a sense of standing that gives you a joy and a hope that things will get better, even though your state may be weird. How do you suffer with joy? You acknowledge the suffering. The suffering is circumstantial, and yet your joy is an internal job. Your joy cannot come from anything external. Your joy comes from knowing who you are. Y'all ready for this? And most importantly, whose you are, and that you are dearly loved, you are dearly honored, and you're so valuable, it's hard to say. Do you know that there's a verse in the scripture that says, for the joy set before Him, Jesus endured suffering at the cross? Think about that. His circumstance, His state was being beaten, spit upon, punched, kicked, crown of thorns being put on His head, His body being ripped to shreds with the cat of nine tails. This was before Him, but it says for the joy set before Him, He endured this, going to the cross, because you see, He knew His standing, and He knew what the work would accomplish, and He was focused on what the completion of this work would mean for you and for me and for our children and our children's children. And for the joy set before Him, He endured the cross. Can you imagine? Is it possible to have joy in suffering? Our very example, Jesus, did it Himself. So how do you suffer with joy? You acknowledge that there's suffering, and yet when you know you have assurance of your faith and you have right standing with the good Lord, then your state is subject to your standing. Have a great day, guys.